Game of the day from round 7 of the Candidates Tournament was undoubtedly Levon Aronian with white against the joint tournament leader Fabiano Caruana. Aronian opening with his customary d4. He likes c4 as well, but they often transpose. And we have this so-called Vienna variation played by Caruana with black. So it's very, very popular indeed. Here, well, you might recall that Aronian had this already with black in the tournament against Caruana. And there Aronian played c5, and that's takes the game in a completely different direction. But Caruana today played h6. So, I mean, both players have experience with this line. So in this position, black is striking out at white's centre very, very quickly. You can see there's no dark squared bishop. I mean, personally, I look at this position and I think black must be absolutely fine. Because, yeah, white's centre is not the most stable. However, this is the plan that white very quickly plants that pawn on e5 and tries to generate an initiative on the king side. This is the whole idea. I still don't quite trust it for white. It feels as though black's resources should be fine here, but it's a very, very double-edged position, and you know there have been many games played in this line. Aronian himself has played bishop d7 in this position with some success. He played that in the World Cup against Ding Liren. Caruana today went for bishop e7. So, I mean, the bishop has done its job on b4 and comes back to e7 where it can protect the king side. Rook d1 from Aronian looks all very sensible, and queen c7. The queen keeps an eye on the bishop, but principally looks at the pawn on e5, and black is going to follow up with knight c6 to put even more pressure there. And here previously, you know, we've seen knight g3 swinging around towards the king side and lending the e-pawn more protection. But here Levon played a new idea, bishop d3. Well, that's a very logical move. This is hardly earth-shattering. Knight d7 played by Fabiano, looking to attack the pawn, maybe sometimes looking at knight c5. Rook c1 from Aronian, hitting the queen, queen a5. Well, here one might have anticipated perhaps dropping the knight back to protect that pawn, but no, here came the most outrageous move. g4. This is so brazen. White is simply looking to open lines on the king side with g5, but I mean this is so direct, it's quite extraordinary. And of course Fabiano sunk into a bit of thought here. If you look at this position with the aid of a computer, then the computer is not impressed by g4 at all, but over the board, this is unbelievably dangerous. Very, very intimidating idea. So at the moment, white is 2 pawns down and has a fierce attack, basically because black is not well developed. The queen side doesn't connect with the king side. Of course, there is a huge disadvantage with advancing your pawns like this in front of your king, that this whole attack can rebound. So incredibly double-edged. Already there's a choice for black. Do you go to d5 or do you go to a5? Afterwards, Caruana said he didn't like queen d5 so much. He, for example, I mean, he gave this possible variation, closing the king side. And now this move, rook c5, very clever idea. So if that's taken, then knight f6 check, and that will push the queen over to the queen side, and well, that's you don't want to look at that. The queen is way too far from protecting its own king. So Queen A5 was played instead, and G5. So Aronian presses on. And here, well, I mean, taking this would be just disastrous. The queen is heading in the right direction. Terrible. Opening up the king. Personally, I don't see what's wrong with bishop d7 in this position. Just bringing the bishop to c6 and preparing to bring a rook into the game. But both players felt that queen d8 was a good move here, the move that Caruana played. It doesn't seem necessary to me to bring the queen back so quickly, but we have to say that, well, there was something to this move, as we'll see later. And here, Aronian played h4. He said afterwards that he was also very tempted by rook f3 and rook g3. Well, okay, that takes the game into very different paths. I mean, it's really hard to say what's best here. As I said before, the computer isn't so impressed with white's position. h4 played, and bishop d7. So finally this bishop starts to come into the game. And g takes h6, so Aronian wanted to open things up. Obviously, if that's recaptured, then queen h5 looks really nasty already. White is definitely doing well there. So here, Caruana closed the position with g6. f5 could be considered just to block out that bishop, but in this case, it does look as though white certainly has decent compensation there for a pawn. I mean, okay, the bishop might be locked out here, but sometimes, you know, it can come to c4 as well. So g takes h6, and now g6 closing the position. So this seems like a very logical continuation. Aronian, of course, wants to open the position, h5, and the king ducked in the corner. So black does have some connection. The king isn't completely on its own, basically. And here Aronian played king h2, which looks like a very logical move to bring the rook to the g file. Well, my computer thinks that this is the best continuation for white, to play knight c5. And after, let's say, exchanging here, and black is all right in this position. Remember, if white captures on g6, then of course there's going to be a rook g8 to trade pieces and, well, a deadly counterattack as well. But here, of course, white can trade queens with queen e5, and things aren't so bad for white. But I suspect, if we come back to, so this is the game position, I suspect that here Aronian didn't consider knight c5 for one moment, because basically after this black is able to simplify and white is on the wrong end of a draw, if you see what I mean. White's attacking chances evaporate after this. He's playing for the win. He's playing to keep the tension in the position. Bishop c6 seems logical. Beautiful diagonal, and sometimes you can simplify. And here, for example, if white trades on g6 and brings the queen over, then you can trade off and play rook f6. And black does have some connection here. You know, you might be able to play queen d6 sometimes, and the next rook comes over, or possibly queen f8 as well. So after bishop c6, Aronian played rook f3, and now bishop d6. So basically Caruana had been planning this ever since he played queen d8. This was his idea. So he's lining up this bishop, and this makes a lot of practical sense. It's very difficult for white to really hit his stride with this attack when these bishops look so beautifully placed, and you know, sometimes the queen comes into the game at the right moment as well. Queen f2 played, and bishop c7. So very cool response from Caruana, just making sure this bishop is safe, just stepping out of the range of the knight. And it's very difficult for white to go further when these bishops stand on these fantastic diagonals. So Aronian played king h3, but boy, does that look well, dubious. I'm going to say it. It feels very odd to have the king staggering up the board. Still incredibly double-edged. So for example, if this pawn is taken, then rook g3, and yeah, that's extremely dangerous. Queen e7 played, and Aronian admitted afterwards that he had overlooked this move and praised the move as well. So again, it's very, very calm. It's just keep connecting the rooks, making sure the rooks can come over. For example, I mean, Caruana said he was mainly looking at rook g1, rook g8, and you know, if there's going to be a trade here, then suddenly the queen and this rook come into the game. Knight g5 played by Aronian. So, as I said before, he's just looking at the king side. He's sending the troops over. And here, well, my computer tells me that this is a winning move. Wouldn't be so clear at the board. But Caruana played what to me looks like a very practical move. He's opening up the center and opening up this diagonal, and suddenly white's king looks in some danger, you know, potentially more than black's king. The player's running short of time, and particularly Levon, and he now sacked an exchange. So you can see you know, this is obviously on prise, but I mean, black has to be very careful about taking that rook, but this is the big idea. He took and then took on f7. So the game absolutely reaching its high point. Aronian playing practically, getting rid of that dangerous bishop, crashes through and has these two incredibly intimidating pawns right in the face of the king. And here Caruana made a mistake. He should take on f4. Now he's a whole rook up here, but matters are not so clear. He should have taken on f4, and after this, well, actually black is going to simplify into an endgame, and white doesn't have anything better than this. So, okay, this is a very long variation, but bear with me. And here, okay, new queen. So it's, let me see, black is a pawn up here. But, I mean, this is an amazing move. Queen h8, of course, a computer variation. So the bishop has to go back, and now check. King goes back, and black manages to take a pawn with check. So black is now 2 pawns up. Now, this does not guarantee a win, but this is black's best in the position. But instead, Caruana played rook f6. And here, Aronian misses a fantastic chance to save the game. He could have played queen h4. And I mean, there are some absolutely beautiful variations here. So just bear with me while I point out a couple. Well, first of all, this one is fairly plain. Now we give a check. The king comes up to h7, and we give another check. And basically, it's a draw by perpetual. That one's pretty clear. Okay, what about e4? This is the really beautiful one. White makes a draw like this. Rook g3, the king goes in the corner. So white is a rook down. It looks like he's completely lost. But now this holds the game. We get a queen. The queen is taken. White's still a rook down, but incredibly in this position, white makes a draw. So king f8 allows a mate on h8. So the king comes up the board. Queen g5 check. Rook can't interpose because the queen is on priest. King f8 is once again mate with queen g8. So the king steps to the side, and now it's a draw by repetition or perpetual check, however you want to say it. A remarkable variation. Of course, in a game you're not going to find that when you're short of time. Aronian gave a check instead. And now he played queen h4. But in this case, it's too little, too late. Here, he crashed. So he gets his queen. Well, he gets his rook back, rather. But here, well, Caruana has to get this right. If queen d6, for example, then white now wins with this move. So if king f8, then we have a check down there and mate. And if rook g6, then we play rook g7, and that wins for white. Incredible. So in this position, instead of queen d6, the queen moved to f8, and that wins. And here, actually, Aronian resigned just before he was about to lose on time. He simply couldn't find a move, and there is no decent move. So, for example, what have we got? Well, rook here is threatened. So if the king steps out of the way, then, well, simply rook h6 anyway. It's utterly lost. And this one, well, you don't take it, but you play king here, and black has an overwhelming material advantage. So tremendous defense from Fabiano Caruana. Yes, there were mistakes, but basically he played very practically, and Aronian just couldn't solve those problems in the time he had. So at the halfway stage, we have Fabiano Caruana out ahead in the lead with 5 out of 7. Mamedyarov only drew today. He had a quick draw against Grishuk, so Mamedyarov has 4.5. So they're out there in first and second place. So, well, I'm just kind of blown away by this game, actually. It was so tense when I was watching this incredible game. Remember, if you like this channel, don't forget to subscribe. Just click the bell, and it's free to subscribe, of course, and that way you get notifications when new videos are posted. And if you've missed any of the videos of the candidates tournament so far, then take a look at the box after I've finished speaking. And of course, if you want to support the channel, then don't forget to have a look at patreon.com PowerPlayChess, and you can get rewards and extra videos according to how much you are willing to contribute. Thanks for watching.